What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in with Callie. Please subscribe if you haven't. I mean, at this point, I can honestly say there's a lot of Clippers fans, a lot of NBA fans that would definitely just say it's time to blow it up. It's time for the Clippers to blow the whole thing up. And, I really can't blame anybody who thinks that, because when I think about just the disappointment of going out in the first round, Kawhi not being healthy once again when needed, and Paul George couldn't come through once again when needed. Neither could James Harden, and neither could Russell Westbrook. It was really it was really one of those series where, I thought the Clippers actually could beat the Dallas Mavericks without Kawhi, especially the way they could have kept it going the way they had it. If they would have got a better outing in Game 5, I think this series is completely different. Even if they lost Game 5 and lost by 5 points or less or something like that, I think the series would be, very, very different. It might even be going back to LA for Game 7. But, at some point, when you go down the list, guys, and how the situation might be blown up. I mean, you start with Russell Westbrook. Russ was very almost non-playable in the playoffs, and that's not a good thing. You can't have a player of his caliber where you really can't even use him at moments in the playoffs because he hurts you more than he helps you. And the fact that he was shooting 25% from three and 35% from the field was very horrible for the Clippers in regards to what they expected from him, along with Norman Powell coming off the bench, because those two coming off the bench really supply the Clippers a lot of offense, and they generate a lot of offense for others as well, because how they can open up the floor, especially Russ, because he can still go on the break and make passes and things like that. But I mean, just the fact that, him being a shooter, when teams put him in that position, that's when, things don't work out well, for the Clippers, because like I said, he's being dared to shoot, and most times he's going to hit 1 out of 5 from three, just because Russ is really just not like a 3-point shooter. He's not that at all. He's never been a shooter at all. So, I mean, if he's not doing something athletic, then he really kind of isn't, making an impact or maybe making a play defensively. And as the series went on, he wasn't able to. So the Clippers got to really look at that and be like, well, can we really use him long term? Is he really going to benefit us? Playoffs where we can, where we need a player like him, even though he gives us energy. Energy is good, but no production and no points, and not being able to cover ground, in a league where the three-point shot is heavily predicated, it makes Russ kind of unusable at times. So it's the Clippers, his contract is so small, they'll probably end up keeping him. But who knows? I personally think they will keep him. But, they have to figure out a way to implement him along with, somebody else that can give the offense off the bench balance, because Russ is really not a shooter like that. And teams are going to put him in that situation, obviously, if it comes to a playoff matchup, as we see. But now on James Harden, I mean, year after year, it's the same thing with James Harden. In the playoffs, he can look like a player that's like one of the all-time greats, 1 or 2 games, and then the games you need him most, for some reason that you really just can't count on this guy, even though you want to. And it makes it hard, counting on him, because this is what's going to happen. I mean, like I said, there's been many times in playoff series where this guy has shot piss poor when his team has needed him the most. And when you look at James Harden as the prolific scorer that he's always been looked at as, you would think it's just not that difficult for him to really just turn into the mode of what he usually does in the regular season. But if for some reason in the playoffs, when the lights are the brightest, you really can't trust him. And, as much as I will say he runs the offense because, he is the point guard of the team. But, heavy usage of James Harden just really does not win championships, because, like I said, he's just one of those players. Even if Kawhi was there, they still would struggle some offensively because they have a lot of ISO ball, because, you're not going to run too many plays through James Harden, because he already has the ball in his hands 99% of the time. So you run too many plays for him, he's going to start just jacking up ill-advised shots, and it just kind of makes their offense go stagnant and go one and done. And, with them already playing isolation basketball a lot, that would make their offense run even worse. So, I mean, when you think about James Harden, he's good and he's bad. Because he's good because he can give you 10, 12 assists a game, and he can have games where he only give you a few turnovers. But like I said, at some point you need his offense to be consistent too. And like I said, you're not asking much from James Harden. You're asking from like a 17 to 19 point guy with about 8 or 9 assists a game, very few minimal turnovers, and maybe a few rebounds in there. Maybe about 6 or 7 rebounds, which is almost like close to a triple-double or something like that. You know, you're asking him to be that, which is like a third guy of the team. And to me, he can't even really fill that role correctly, because if it's time for him to step up, yeah, he'll have a game or two here and there where he can, you know, play big, but you can never really count on him like that, nor can you count on Paul George. And I personally think they'll find a way possibly to keep James Harden, because I don't really see how they get rid of him specifically. If they, you know, more so they know they need a point guard at all times to really filter their offense out, because they have a lot of guys, you know, a lot of ball dominant scorers, but they need somebody to get them in position to score. And that's cool. But at the same time, like I said, when you have to rely on his offense, he has to be efficient at times in doing that to keep everything balanced. He can't just be out there having 10 assists and then hypothetically he goes 0 for 10 from the field, which we've seen him do that. That's horrible. So it's like when you think about the James Harden experiment, you got to always think about going forward. Well, in the playoffs, we just can't expect him to. We can only expect him to give us 1 or 2 good games. We can't expect any more from him. So, you know, we have to either make up for him, or if we find somebody out there better to make a trade for him, then do it. But I personally don't see nobody out there right now what they would get back in return. So I just probably see them keeping with that situation with James Harden. I mean, now Paul George, I mean, he didn't re-sign after or before Kawhi Leonard, and a lot of people were weary about that about a couple months ago. So now looking at Paul George in these playoffs, that Game 5, I feel like that Game 5 really hurt his stock a lot. I really do. I really feel like that Game 5 I feel like it almost put a dagger into his contract extension, I would say, because for him to only have like 14 points and he's supposed to be the guy on the floor. When Kawhi goes out, you're the number one. You didn't even take enough shots to really get yourself going. You didn't take enough shots to really get into a rhythm, and you didn't have the confidence to go out there more than anything and execute the way a number 1A, 1B, 2 player would do. Because there's plenty of number 2s on a team that'll go out there and they have no problem shooting. They'll put up 20, 25 shots. They'll do that easily. Whether they make them or not, that's one thing, but they don't have no problem going out there putting up the shots. I mean, I haven't seen many players be that shy if they're given the green light the way Paul George was, and he just really shrunk under the pressure, as he always does. And he's just not a guy that you can count on, because even in the regular season games where Kawhi played, you know, it's like sometimes you'll see Kawhi with like 35 points and then Paul George will have like 19 or 20, you know, something like that. And it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Why can't he, you know, ever give a consistent, you know, output? Because there are times where he'll have games where he have like 30, 35 points, and then the next night he'll come back with a 12-point game, or he'll have a 25-point night, and the next night he'll have like a 14-point night. It's like it's always inconsistency with Paul George, whether Kawhi is on the floor with him or not. It just doesn't matter. It's just never consistency, and that's what showed in Game 5 and Game 6. And it just, you know, I didn't like that give up mentality. I feel like him and James Harden, they played with that. Oh well, it's no pressure at all. You know. The older I get, you know, I don't have any pressure to do anything. It's like, okay, if you're saying stuff like that, then that's definitely not a winning mentality. That's definitely not something I want to hear somebody like Paul George say. Like, oh, it's no pressure. When they ask him in the post game, you know, about or the pregame of Game 6 of the Dallas Mavericks, like before the game, it's like no pressure. Like, oh, okay, how you don't have pressure? You haven't won a championship. The goal was to win a championship. There's always pressure. And that's the thing with Paul George. I don't feel like he's mentally engaged enough to win a championship, because he's got podcast P and all these other things when you need to be focusing on winning. You can't go from the crypto.com stadium after you win or lose and just go get on this podcast and make it seem like everything is everything. No, you got to really put in the work. Instead of doing that podcast, he need to be in the lab a lot more. And that's the problem with Paul George. I don't feel like he takes things as serious enough. Me personally, going into next season, I wouldn't have him on my roster. I just wouldn't. I mean, look at it how you want, speak on it how you want, but I just wouldn't have him on my roster. I would have him removed. I would, maybe send him back to Indiana. I heard some rumors about Indiana or Philadelphia or something like that. That'd be fine. Send him to Orlando, the Magic. They can use him. They got a nice little young team over there. Maybe get a piece back or something and use it as get a couple draft picks back and some money and use it as an option or trade to go bring another big fish, to L.A. with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I don't know. I that's just my personal opinion, because I mean, even like I said, even if Kawhi is there and if Paul George can't be relied on, well, that'll be the same scene or same situation like the bubble. Because in the bubble, Kawhi Leonard showed up every single game from Dallas series to the Nuggets series. The only game he didn't show up in was that game 7 because he tired out. He really flamed out. I mean, all his shots were short. He just looked tired. And, Paul George lagged from game 3 to, I think, game 3 all the way to game 6 or game 7. He lagged. And it's like you couldn't depend on him. So it's like, it's always a situation with Paul George. So I just don't know, healthy or not. I mean, if Kawhi is healthy, which is very seldom, but, it's not he has much to depend on. So, I mean, and then you get to Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he's already signed his extension. He's already there for at least another 2 to 3 years. And then it's like you can't push him away, technically, if you're Steve Ballmer, because you can trade Kawhi Leonard, but you just open up a new stadium. Unless you're getting a player back like a Kevin Durant or something like that, or somebody of that caliber, okay, maybe different. But if you're not getting nobody back except just a bunch of draft picks and a little bit of cash capital to maybe go after a big fish the following year or something like that, hypothetically, if you traded Kawhi this offseason, it's a waste of time going into that new arena and don't have no superstar type players there. So, I mean, it's especially the guy who is the guy on the team. He just can't seem to stay healthy for some reason. Like I said, I don't know if they need to go back to load management or whatever they need to do, but Kawhi got to find a way to stay on the court, just plain and simple. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way the Clippers really going to have a chance. And now, if you ask me ultimately about the whole situation, I can say this. For some reason, I do have a hunch, I would say, a feeling that the Clippers are going to run it back. Because I feel like the Clippers might actually run it back, especially if they keep Ty Lue, because Ty Lue is getting offers from the Lakers and other teams, now that, of course, that the season's over for the Clippers. But there was reports about the Lakers drawing interest for Ty Lue along with J.J. Redick. So, I mean, that rumor swirling out there. The relationship with him and LeBron goes a long way, so you got to factor that in. But, I mean, if Ty Lue stays with the Clippers, which is kind of up in the air, I'm not sure. Depending on the money is where I think, Ty Lue is at with it. Whoever offers him the right money, he's gone. I don't think he really has the loyalty thing in him like he portrays. But, I mean, of course, we have to see. But either way, if Ty Lue stays, I think they'll run it back with everybody. I don't think they'll switch up anything. I think they'll just kind of go through the motions with the team that they have and kind of just see what happens once again, because maybe the Clippers more or less going to look at it like it's not like we didn't have the team to do it. We just didn't have health on our side once again. And that's the so-called silver lining that the Clippers organization probably will look at if they end up keeping Ty Lue. Because if Ty Lue stays, he's definitely going to want to keep the same guys. More than likely. I don't feel like if Ty Lue stays, he's really going to want another operation a whole lot different to where they, can't be in the same position they was in this year, except just one injury away from possibly making a run. So, I mean, with that being said, it all really depends on Ty Lue, whether he comes back or not. If he decides to stay with the Clippers, which he sounded like that, in the post game after the Mavericks, or I think it was the day of that game. I remember watching one of his interviews, and they was asked him something about that, and he said he planned on staying with the Clippers. So like I said, but if the money's right, I'm pretty sure he will. I'm pretty sure he won't give him no discount either. But we have to see where it goes, with that specifically. But don't be surprised if they do run it back, because like I said, with a new stadium and everything, they can't just put in a bunch of young guys and try to rebuild the team at this point. So I mean, it's pretty much at that situation where it is. They got to either try to run it back or bring back most of these players to keep people interested in coming to games. Well, at least they got Kawhi locked up. But, I mean, a lot of people are not happy with those results because, Kawhi just didn't play again in the playoffs once again. So now Kawhi, it's like a lot of people, kind of got him in the doghouse, sort of say. But, really all of them are in the doghouse. I mean, really the way they looked in Game 5 going forward was horrible. And as a team, they just didn't execute well. And I feel like they just gave up. And that's not something that I feel like Kawhi definitely would have let happen if he was there, but he wasn't. So you got to, look at that all on its own too. But wow. We'll see what next season brings for them and see how it pans out. But definitely could be some changes this offseason. Don't be surprised if it is.